Bonjour, voici vidéo 14C, conjonction ou préposition. Let's start this lesson with a little bit of a review. Turn back to page 213 where you had le subjonctif, troisième partie. In this section, we learned that the subjunctive is used after certain conjunctions, à condition que, pourvu que, afin que, pour que, bien que, and quoique. We saw that when these are used, the phrase that follows must be in the subjunctive. The verb in that phrase must be in the subjunctive. Well, today we're going to look at a way to basically avoid having to use a subjunctive at all by using a preposition instead. So this section is called conjonction ou préposition, and if you turn to that page, 217, we're going to look at how we can avoid using the subjunctive in our que clause by just switching to a preposition and an infinitive. So let's look at our choices that we can do that with, and then we'll do some examples. The conjunction avant que would change to the preposition avant de. À condition que changes to à condition de. Afin que changes to afin de. Then these pour que and sans que just change to pour and sans. No de on those two. So when you use a subjunctive with these conjunctions, you can avoid that by using the infinitive with these prepositions. And that includes conjunction and subjunctive here, and then preposition and infinitive here. Those aren't lined up quite the same, but hopefully you can tell what I've got going on with the different sections there. Okay, so if you look at your textbook, it will tell you some examples. It will show you some examples of how they're going to change from using the subjunctive into using the prepositions and the infinitives. One thing that is very important to note is that to do this, the subject of the initial clause and the subject of the subjunctive clause has to be the same. So if you look at your explanation there in page 217, they use the example nous prierons avant que tu partes. We are going to pray before you leave. We have two different subjects there. We have nous, and then we have in the avant que section, we have tu. But let's say that we want to say we will pray before we leave. They give you that, how that would look. Nous prierons avant que nous partions. But that is a very awkward way of saying that because you don't need to repeat that same subject with that subjunctive verb when you can use one of these prepositions instead. And that's what the third example is there underneath that circle with the line through it. Nous prierons avant de partir. We will pray before leaving. So we've gotten rid of the que, we've gotten rid of the subjunctive. We're simply going to use a preposition and the infinitive. Okay? If you turn the page, there is a box that shows you a list of prepositions, a list of conjunctions that do not have a preposition. And what that means is that you have to use a subjunctive even if the subject is the same with these particular conjunctions. And that is pourvu que, bien que, quoique, and jusqu'à ce que. The reason comes down to grammar. These particular phrases do not have a preposition equivalent. The other ones do. So that's why we can do that with them. We can turn it into a preposition and an infinitive, but these don't. So we're really stuck, and we have to just go ahead and use the subjunctive with those four. All the rest, if the subject is the same in both clauses, you can just use the infinitive, and it's much more simple. So let's do an exercise together. Exercice H. Que se passera-t-il? Formez des phrases à l'aide des éléments donnés. So we've got Jérôme, travailler, bien que, and il, être, fatigué. Okay, so bien que is one of our list up there of ones that we do not have a preposition for, so we're going to have to use the subjunctive there. Jérôme travaillera bien qu'il soit fatigué. Okay, so let's look at numéro 1. Nous prendre résolution au nouvel an, quoique nous les oublier and souvent. Okay, so we look up at our chart there and we see quoique. Even if we have the same subject, I cannot avoid the subjunctive here. So I'm going to have to go ahead and do that subjunctive. Okay, and that would be, how would that look? Hopefully you're working on it right now, since it's taking me a minute to cap my marker here. Okay, so we want nous prendrons. We're going to use a future here. And what was the rest of it? Des résolutions au nouvel an. That's New Year's resolutions. And then we want quoique. So I'm just going to leave that. Okay. Quoique. Although. And then we want. We will forget them. Although we will forget them, right? Nous les oublier. So we have to have nous. Les is the resolutions. And then, ooh, this is going to be fun. Our verb is oublier, right? It has an I in the stem. Nous puts an I in the subjunctive ending, doesn't it? So you're going to get oublions. Isn't that fun? Oublions. Nous prendrons les résolutions, quoique nous les oublions. Okay? Numéro 2. Vous être en meilleure santé, pourvu que vous cessez and fumez. Alrighty? Pourvu que is one of those, provided that, it's up above, it does take the subjunctive, we cannot avoid that. So we will get vous serez en meilleure santé. Just leave that as it is. En meilleure santé. And pourvu que, that's VU. Pourvu que, and then it was vous, and what was the rest? Cessez de fumer, quelque chose comme ça? Right. Cessez is a regular ER verb. Subjunctive. Que vous cessiez, and then you need the de there. Fumer. We have to add that in. Cesser is one of the verbs that takes a de in front of an infinitive. Okay? Numéro 3. La piscine reste fermée jusqu'à ce que elle être nettoyée. The pool will remain closed until it is cleaned. Okay? Let's see how that would look then. That's another one that cannot be avoided. We must use the subjunctive. So, we have la piscine, the pool. Whoops. La piscine. Future will remain. Fermé is closed, adjective. Feminine for la piscine. And then it was jusqu'à ce que. It's a long one. Let me make sure I spell it right. Sorry. Where is it? Jusqu'à ce que. Right. Jusqu'à ce que. Right, let's do this. Jusqu'à ce qu'elle, that's la piscine, elle. And then être in the subjunctive, soit nettoyé. And this, again, feminine, just like fermé. These are verbs, but they're functioning as adjectives here. It will stay closed until it is cleaned. So there you go. We can use those verbs as adjectives. That's why they have agreement here. Okay, so qu'elle soit nettoyée. La dernière, yes. Je sortir, bien que je devoir, and étudier. So we want I will leave, and bien que is again having to use the subjunctive. There is no preposition form, so you would say bien que in the subjunctive. although I must study. So I'm going out even though I must study. Poor choice. But hey, I didn't invent these sentences. I'm just doing the grammar for you here. So we want je sortirai. These are all in the future, remember? What was it? Bien que, right? Although. Je, and then you want I should, basically I should be studying. I must study. So you want devoir in the subjunctive, doivent, and then our infinitive. Okay? So with these 4 conjunctions that we have, we must use the subjunctive even when the subject is the same. Now we talked about this quite a bit in class, but for Olivia and Mariah's sake, I want to go over a couple of them where you can use just the infinitive. So if you were in class and you understood that, you don't need to watch the rest of this, but for Mariah and Olivia, I want to go over how to use the those prepositions. I can't use these, obviously, because they don't have any preposition forms, but I want to show you how to use those prepositions and the infinitives instead of using the subjunctive. So again, let's flip back and do the other exercise that talks about that. So remember our conjunctions were avant que, à condition que, afin que, pour que, sans que, and our prepositions were avant de, à condition de, afin de, and then just pour and sans, right? So let's look at exercise G. It's just right above the box there, exercise G. Pretend that your teacher has asked you to correct your neighbor's paper. Every sentence has the same mistake. Correct each one by using a preposition and an infinitive. So look at your modèle. Hélène est venue pour qu'elle parle de son voyage. Helen came so that she could talk about her voyage. Or in order that, okay, I'm just checking that how they're translating that. In order that she could talk about her voyage. So what we're going to do is take out that whole phrase, replace it with pour and the infinitive. Hélène est venue pour parler de son voyage. Okay, let's just try a few of these together. Je lui parle avant que je parte. I speak to him before I leave. Okay, so what we want to say is I speak to him before leaving. And we're going to take out that subjunctive at the end and use avant de instead. It's real simple. We just go je. Ooh, my marker's running out. Je lui, what was it? Parle? Sometimes I forget by the time I start writing. Je lui parle, and then we want avant de instead of avant que. Avant de, and I think it was partir. Before leaving. Infinitive, it's the same infinitive that's given in the subjunctive up above, right? Que je parte, or avant que je parte, and we're going to go avant de partir instead. Let's look at another one. Numéro 2. Solange est allée à Munich pour qu'elle apprenne l'allemand. Solange went to Munich so that, or in order to, learn, in order that she could learn, or she learns, German. We would say she could learn German there. So let's change it to Solange went to Munich in order to learn German. We're just going to take out all of that subjunctive stuff and just go straight to the infinitive. Okay? So Solange est allée is going to be the same thing. Oops. Solange est allée blah 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 à Munich, and then we're going to go pour, and we're going to just take that verb that we see there, apprenne. We have to know what that is. That's apprendre, to learn. And so we got infinitive, pour apprendre, and then the language, l'allemand. Ooh, I'm going to run out of room. Oop, made it. Okay? So we're going to use pour without the que. We're going to use apprenne in the infinitive to go with your preposition pour. And this is more often how we say things in English anyway, right? I talk to him before leaving, or she goes, whatever, to learn, in order to learn, right? So we do this again and again. Alrighty, so if you have questions about this part especially, the other part I think was much more straightforward, but this is really the changing from the conjunctions to the prepositions. If you have questions about that, feel free to contact me, okay? And that will conclude the 14, whatever this was, sorry, 14, this audio segment. We'll just leave it at that. Au revoir.